this video is about the 8000 Repel, and we're going to use the RS-232 connection to connect to a PC. So you'll see in my actual cable, what I do is I get an RS-232 to USB cable, and specifically this is my model from Sabrent. Only matters because it has the FTDI chipset. When you're ordering, might matter, might not matter. It depends more on the software, because some softwares require a certain driver, like our software for data logging requires the FTDI chipset, which is only on this one. So another cable that's cheaper that doesn't have this will not work for our software, and depending on your software might not work as well. So that's why I prefer just you get a USB to serial cable that has FTDI chip. So that's my specific example, and you'll see I have my 8000 Repel here, and I actually created this cable, and you see it has 3 wires here, and then it has the RS-232 connection on this end, and you'll notice how they're both male connectors. So you could also get a gender changer. You could also get a gender changer, so you're able to plug them both in like so, right? And you hook this up to your computer. So the difficult part is knowing which ones you transmit, which ones you receive, and which ones you ground. So I have mine here, and I did extend them a little bit. You see I use red, green, red, green, black. And I'll show you a specific wiring diagram because you need to know the pin outs. Pin 2 is typically your transmit, pin 3 is typically your receive, and then pin 5 is typically your ground. And these cables, your RS-32 to USB cable, typically requires that as well. So I'll open mine up and I'll show you why this matters. If you already have this cable, you could fast forward to the video, but I just want to show you this part. So I fully stripped the cable, and you can see this pin 1, then pin 2, then pin 3, pin 4, pin 5. So I wired my red cable as pin 2, green cable as pin 3, and black cable as pin black, or pin 5. It doesn't really matter which order or which colors you use, just remember which is transmit. So my red cable, which is pin 2, is from transmit. So I have red cable here, and I extended it with this white cable. That's my transmit. Pin 3 on here is my green cable, and that's this teal green looking color. So that's my pin 3 receive, and you'll see pin 5 here is my ground, which is my black cable. So you could always just check, and it's very difficult to see, very small writing, but make sure you got the transmit, pin 2, receive, pin 3, and pin 5 for ground, and we'll hook it back up. So I'm going to assemble this back in, and we'll show you the wiring on which is transmit, which is receive, and which is ground. Alright, so you got the difficult part out of the way, where you got your cable, you know, the wiring of it. So now it's time to hook it up. So first, get your RS-232 connection, and in my case, since this is a male end, if you had a female end on this, you wouldn't know how to do this, but my gender changer doesn't do anything, it just changes gender. And then get your RS-232 to USB cable. So go on your computer, and you can always right click on the Windows button and click on Device Manager, or in the search bar you can just search for Device Manager, and then you go under ports. See, I currently have port 1 and port 4 connected. So you see I have my cable here, so plug it in, and when I plug in to the PC, you'll see COM5 appears. So I know my cable here is COM5. So the 8000 Repel, and you'll see it actually in the manual. If you go to the installer manual on page 4, PDF at least, you'll see if you turn the board this way, 1, 2, and 3 is receive, transmit, and signal. So if you here, I already have this open. See the board down here. So you'll see 3 slots. So if you remember the wiring, when I said very important, receive, transmit, and ground. So for me, the first one is going to be receive. Looking at it this way, the first one is receive. So for me, that's pin 3, which in my case is the green cable. So I pull this down, make sure it goes all the way in. Okay, and it doesn't come out. Okay, got the first one in. The second one, if you look here in the catalog or manual, say, pin 2 is the transmit, which is my red cable. It's connected to pin 3, which is red cable, and then extension is white. Kind of hard to see, it's red here and white. So on pin 2. So now put it down the middle one. Got that one. And the last one, number 3, is my signal ground, which in my case, pin 5, which is always pin 5, which is my black cable. So it's important to know, it's good to open it up to see, do you have a receive, a transmit, and a ground? Because there are 3 that is going to be needed for this connection. Cook it up here. Okay, I have my 3 set up, and I already have my load cell connected off screen, so I could just for demo purposes, just so you can see it, turn on my indicator. Okay, I'm back on my desktop. Right, I'm still 69.2 pounds. That's fine. So I'm running a software called Putty. This is a free software you can download on the internet. It's called PUTTY. This is a hyperterminal, so I could just check that COM port. Remember, we checked previously, my COM port is COM5, but it could be whatever your COM port is. What we're going to do is actually open that COM port and seeing, do we get that 69.2 pounds? So currently it's set to full duplex, and I'll explain that in a little bit, what that matters. Just know that open up Putty or whatever software hyperterminal of your choice, go to stereo, and then the baud rate 9600 by default. So for me, I'm going to change this to COM5, and I'm going to open it up, and I see nothing, which is what I was expecting. If I press the letter P, you see now I have my date, my time, and my gross. Right? If I keep pressing P, it keeps repeating it. And now if I type the letter, let me see, I think it's T, now it tears out the indicator. You see now it says, if possible, 0.0 pounds. And you'll see it again if I press P. You'll see my gross, my tear, and my net. So now I'm able to tear by pressing the T button, and P by pressing the total weight. How do I know these commands? If you go back to the installer's manual, and it's all the way at the bottom. Here it is. On page 26, you see P is command set for print to indicate display, T for tear, see Z is for 0, it's an indicator switch to gross mode, revert to net, and then C toggle among configuration units of measure. So those are different commands. Why does any of this matter? Well, see, it's currently set up, and if you look in the catalog or manual, we're currently set up to COM1. COM1 is the board here, the one we just connected to. So we need to change the settings for COM1. So by default, well, let's see what it is. If you go on the manual, it is the A1, or as they call it, COM1. Very confusing, very fast. Just to know it's A1, the one we're connected to. And you see the bold is what's default, so 9600. So on our software, remember we set the baud rate to 9600 when we started. And we'll set data bits, not as important, that's fine, right? Serial port mode, a couple other things. What you need to know is A13 serial port mode. Currently it's set to demand full duplex. So that's what I was doing. I was pressing the P to display the weight, pressing T to tear, all the commands. That's the command request, where I send a command and it responds back what it is in my terminal, or whatever software of choice you have. If you want a continuous output, you're going to change that to 1. A13, you can set it to 1. And then what kind of string output? That's what the A16 is for. So I'm actually going to show you what that is now. So back here, and I'm here, right? To get into the menu, turn off. And tricky part is when it's turning on, not too hard, but just gonna hold down the menu off button, and we start seeing it slow down. Let's say you know you're getting it correctly to get into the menu. Set, that's good. You want it to be say set. And F. F is how to get into the calibration. That's not what we're trying to do, so I should press right. And you'll see there's A1 and A2. Back to F. So we're working with A1. Remember, that's the COM port we're working on. So A11. So if we check back in the manual, that's the first setting for baud rate. And we can check it, A11, right, 9600. That's the software we're using, Hyperterminal. Most likely, it's not going to change. Most of the time, it's 9600. So we can set, right, and then we're going to change that instead of demand full duplex, we want continuous full duplex. So I don't want to keep pressing on the keyboard just to get something to happen. So you saw how to get into the menu, that was A1-3, press down to get into the menu. Now it says 0, okay? So we'll change that to 1 for continuous. So press set. And you could also change the string format, A1-6. So right now it's set to 2. That's my current string with the date, the time, and the gross. And if you tear it, you'll also see the tear and the net. So let's say I want to change it to 1. Okay, so that's all the settings I had to change for now. So let me just close this, and I didn't close my Hyperterminal. You don't have to. COM ports, you can just leave it open, and whenever it receives data, it will actually show up. So you can see on my screen here, I go up to get out, and then just tap the off button. Okay, now you see how it's just continuously outputting 69.2 LG, just sending out data. And your software, whatever you're trying to run, is going to have to parse that string and say from these characters, from this character, let's say I only want the 69.2, then your software has to parse that string and know not to ignore the LG and ignore the spaces as well. So let's say I want to go back, I had to turn off my indicator. And the COM port, it was continuously running, but turn it on, hold down the off button, set. Let's go back to A1 and back to the manual. You'll see how we're setting the A16, but let's say I want it back to I had it before, where I had it at text print ticket. That's for printers. So I have an example. Let's say 2. And I go back, let me just show my terminal. Okay, and you see how it's continuously outputting date, time, gross weight. And if I tear something, now if I press tear button, right now tearing, going way too fast, you won't be able to see it, but the point still stands. So that's how you change the different settings. So if you ever have an issue where you connect the RS-232 connection and it's just zeroing out or giving you U's error or like little O's in the bottom, most likely you didn't connect it to the right port. You could have had your ground connected to the wrong port, or maybe you had to switch the transmit and receive because maybe the colors were swapped. That's most likely the issue. Make sure the board is all the way in. Sometimes you can pull on this and it comes loose, so you can push it down. But remember, the more important thing is the pin out for your RS-232. Your pin 2 is transmit, pin 3 is receive, and pin 5 is your ground. So you're just going to make sure that they're all in the correct order, and remember it's all in the installer's manual. If you don't have one, you can always ask for us, we can send it to you. Right, pin 1 receive, pin 2 transmit, and pin 3 is your ground. If you have any more questions, you can email me. Thank you. Bye.